Welcome back, guys. So we left off last time with this video on a metaphor example dealing with the idea of figures of speech, figurative language, language that is creative and elastic and playful. And we dealt with this typical, you would even call it a cliche idea of my love is a red, red rose. Okay, so we thought about the idea of the concrete details. Okay, the concrete physical details of the object lead us to the meaning of the metaphor that gives us the transformation of the metaphor into an argument. And so we thought about, the redness of the rose, the beauty of the rose, how delicate it is, but then there's thorns, it's dangerous, be careful when you pluck it, and so on. Okay, so that's an example of a metaphor. I've done something here as well, just incidentally. Okay, there are 3 words beginning with the letter R in a row. And you'll encounter this later, but when you have 2 or more words beginning with the same first letter in a line or a sentence, then that's another technique called alliteration. So just point that out here. You've got 2 techniques in one. You've got a metaphor and you've got alliteration going on because of the red rose, R, R, R. So anyway, let's do another quick metaphor, and we'll change it up a bit. So I'm going to keep on this love theme, okay? So let's make a line here. So let's say my love again. We still need is. I'm going to say, my love is a Korean walnut cake. Okay? My love is a Korean walnut cake. Well, I've clearly changed the argument about love. Okay, we have our transformative verb. Okay, this is what transforms it, the verb here, the to be verb. And now I've transformed my love into this object, right? Korean walnut cake. Well, we're not in a traditional kind of setting anymore of this metaphor, right? But okay, I don't know. There's my Korean walnut cake. All right. So we would want to then think about, okay, Korean walnut cakes, what are they like? And as we mentioned before, what we want to think about is the concrete details. What I mean by concrete details is like the physical, actual details about Korean walnut cake-ness, right? Like, what are they like? What are Korean walnut cakes like? So, if you think about it, if, just, you can think about it, they are sweet, right? They are soft. Sometimes they're warm. If they're fresh, they're still warm. Hot off the press kind of thing. So they're sweet, they're soft, they're warm, they may be a bit squishy. They have some kind of fun filling inside. So maybe they have, custard or red bean. Okay, so there's something inside of them. That's nice, a little treat inside. Okay, so those are all kind of positive attributes, positive aspects, right? But I mean, do Korean walnut cakes like stay warm and fresh for very long? Do they last long? Can you eat them 4 days later? Will they still be good? Will they still stay fresh? Not really. They're only good for a short period of time. So they don't last long. So the negative aspect is they, in a negative sense, they don't last very long. Okay, they're good while they're fresh, but after a while, not so nice. Okay, so is this the poem that you really want to write to your boyfriend or girlfriend and say, my love is a Korean walnut cake? Might not be so good, because what's the argument behind this statement? Well, we can phrase it. We can say, okay, well, let's just say love in general, okay, because it's a statement. So the argument is the kind of logic, like what is it saying about love, right? Because love becomes something, in this case, a Korean walnut cake. So every metaphor is automatically argumentative. Every metaphor. It's an argument because we are saying this is what love is. And it becomes this other thing. And whatever this other thing is what love is like. Right? So we can say love is tasty, sweet, and warm when it's fresh. All right, but there's a big but coming here. But it doesn't last long. Okay, it's kind of a downer, this particular metaphor. If we wanted to just focus on the but part of it doesn't last long, we could say love is ephemeral. Ephemeral means it vanishes away quickly. It's like a mist. It's here and then it's gone. Just like that. Okay, so two metaphors there that we got. You'll encounter also similes. Okay. A simile is exactly like a metaphor, except, okay, so exactly like a metaphor, it compares two things, an idea and an object, normally, except, okay, it uses the words like or as. Okay, so my love is like a red rose or a Korean walnut cake. But because I say it's like, okay, so it's similar to, but not identical. So we're doing still a comparison, right, between two things, and usually the two things are an idea concept and an object or a thing. Okay, so generally an idea or a concept and an object and thing are being compared. Okay, but the difference here is I'm using the word like or the word as. So it's still drawing on similarities, but it's not an exact one-to-one identification. So A doesn't exactly become B like in the metaphor, but it's like B. So there are certain qualities and aspects of B that A is similar to, but it's not a perfect, identical match. So that's the difference between a simile and a metaphor. Okay. We could say something like, she was as slow as, there's as, a sloth. Okay, a sloth is a super, super slow creature. It just hangs around in trees most of the day, and so on. She was as slow as a sloth. Actually, I've got lots of S's going on here again, and that gives me some alliteration, all those S's as well. Okay, now back to metaphors for a quick moment. In terms of metaphors, sometimes it doesn't give you the to be verb is. Okay, so if that's missing, it's still a metaphor. If I say her raven black hair, it's still a metaphor, but in English you don't always have a to be verb, right, in the middle. So, but raven black is the metaphorical term because we're comparing to this, raven bird. Okay, that's my raven. Alright, it doesn't really look like a raven, but whatever. Okay, so that raven bird, the raven, the blackness of the raven's feathers are what her hair is being changed into, raven black hair. It doesn't say like raven black hair, it becomes it. Okay, so yeah, just keep your eye out that there has to be two things, and they have to be either compared with like or as, or transformed completely with or without a to be verb. Just be careful, just because you see the word as in a sentence, like there's another as here, right? So she and slow is not the comparison. So lots of students make the mistake is they see the word like or they see the word as and they think it's always a simile or a metaphor. It's not. If there's is or like or as, it's not always a metaphor or a simile. You have to make sure there are two distinct things in view being compared. Usually an idea or a concept with an object. Two things. Okay, so now why do we use this kind of language? What's the purpose? Okay, figurative language is persuasive, but it's also supposed to delight us. Okay, it's delightful, it's playful, and we'll talk about that in the next video about the purpose of using these kinds of language techniques in your writing. It's good for all kinds of writing, not just poetry, not just persuasive speeches, but essays and so forth. So we'll deal with some more categories in the next videos. Thanks.